Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are talking about the best events in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and what they were, basically. We're going to go over every single one of the events, in my own personal opinion, and tell you which ones were the best, or more specifically, which ones were the most fun, while also being a good idea, as well as then just going down the list and telling you which ones were not good and were not a good idea to begin with. So, yeah, let's start off here with Anti-Spell. Anti-Spell, I think, is a solid... I'm actually going to do D and F. Because I think there are more stinkers than there are good ones. So it's going to go SA, and then it's going to be a big gap, and then CDF. And honestly, this is a D tier. Anti-Spell is such a mid, like, not very fun idea to begin with. Just not playing with spells is not very fun in practice, right? This was also at the same time that Adamancipator was at full power, so this was basically just the Adamancipator event, which was not very fun. But we also had like Eldritch with like Eldritch Stun still being around, and this was early enough into the life cycle where a lot of like the stun cards hadn't quite been taken out, and there were still a lot of those running around. So yeah, there's that. It was something. I'll tell you that. It wasn't very fun, though. Attribute 4. Okay. Attribute 4, I know a lot of people really liked this one. But this is not where it goes right now. Just bear with me, okay? As I explain. As I yap. Okay. Attribute 4, I think a lot of people really enjoyed. And I think the main reason for that was because people were sick of Tearlament in particular, and so they were like, oh, it's something other than Tearlament, right? Because this was Tier 0 Tearlament, and everyone was like super sick of it. However, this event kind of sucked. And the reason for it is because instead of limiting you to only playing like earth or water or fire or wind or something like that, right? Specifically limiting you to those specific archetypes. It was, you could play any of those as long as it was not a light or a dark or a divine, right? So as long as it wasn't light and dark, you could play any of those attributes, which like in concept is so annoying. It's like, well, what's the point? Now, granted, this was before, like, Snake Eyes or anything like that, right? This was, still during Adamancipator, though. Yep. This was another full-power Adamancipator, and it was slightly better. I'll give it that. So I'll put it in C tier, but it wasn't that much better. It was really mid. It was, I think the only reason people remember this one as fondly as it was is because I think a lot of people were just, like, wanting something other than Tearlament. So there's that. Duelist Cup is one of the worst events that I have ever seen in my entire existence. The main issue that I have with it is that it is a super poorly designed tournament style event to basically determine who goes to Worlds. It is a farce of an event and has never really been very well structured. And for anyone who doesn't want to play Ranked 2.0, there is nothing else to supplement you. If you don't play the Duelist Cup and you wanted to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, well, take a break for a month because you're not getting anything else. That's kind of it. Another issue that I have is specifically not being able to see my opponent's deck lists in the first stage. A lot of people are cooking, and I would like to see what they're cooking. And I just can't do that, and it tilts me off the face of the planet. I think the Duelist Cup has so many issues and is more full of issues than like any other event. Okay, so there you go. There is one other event that is similar, which is the World Championship. I think the World Championship qualifier is slightly better, but they're both basically the exact same thing, and they're both terrible. So we're just going to move on. Dual Triangle. I actually really like this one. I thought this one was very interesting. I thought there was a lot of fun to be had. I played way too much of it, so I kind of got burnt out of it. But I do recognize that this was a good concept. It was Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz pitting themselves against each other, but you could play any of those, which is really cool. I like that. I like being able to basically choose, like, oh, maybe I want to play Synchro, maybe I want to play Xyz. There were a lot of different decks that you could play for all of those different strategies. Fusion had one of the best structure or loner decks that I've ever seen, which made it super simple to pick up and to play and to just like roll with that and not really have to think, which was really 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 cool. And overall, like the event was fairly fun. It wasn't perfect. There's like 2 events that you will see that I think are well done. But all in all, not great. That's it. X0 Festival, I think, is also pretty mid. This was basically just done a lot of times. I don't really... The thing with Yu-Gi-Oh!, the thing that makes it really fun is the extra deck, right? So when you remove the extra deck and you don't play the extra deck, it sucks. It's really, really boring. Not much happens. There were a lot of, like I played Dark Lord. A lot of people played, like, Eldritch. I think Labyrinth may have been out, but without Lovely, or not Lovely, Lady. So there's that. So that might have been played. I can't remember exactly what was played because this was towards the beginning of the lifespan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So it was, I don't know. I remember this not nearly as fondly as a lot of the rest, and I think it was just like it was just not a good idea. This was one of those things where it's like, yeah, they were not cooking. I think the later ideas that Konami has had, the more recent events, as you'll see, I think have been a lot more interesting, and at least in concept, maybe not as perfect or as like well executed as it could have been, but in concept, I think they've been a lot better. The fusion event, this was the first fusion event. This was before like Branded got its full power and stuff like that. I think that I remember this one really fondly. I remember it being extremely fun and entertaining and back and forth and actually like having a unique strategy, right? I think the loners were fairly decent, and there wasn't like a bunch of fusion decks. More specifically, Branded and Tier Limit both weren't out, which kind of centralized a lot of fusion strategies when they were released. So it was a lot more variety in that capacity, which was very very nice. Like if you look at the Dual Triangle, a lot of the fusion decks were basically just Branded or Tier or both, basically smushed together, and there wasn't much variety outside of that other than like the Chimera structure, right, which didn't play any of those cards. But in the previous fusion event, it was, that wasn't around, so you saw a lot more interesting strategies, interesting ideas. You still saw like Eldritch and stuff like that, but there was still a lot more that was interesting and dynamic about it, which I found to be a lot more engaging and a lot more fun. I also really do enjoy the fusion mechanic as a whole. I enjoy all of the mechanics, to be fair. I don't think there's like a bad one except for Pendulum. But all in all, pretty good event. Fusion XZ I think was fine. Adding the XZs, this was post like Branded being really good. I think this was also when Tier was around. I can't remember. But yeah, this one was not great. It was fine. Like, again, similar to Attribute 4, it was fine, but there wasn't anything, like, putting it a tier above or, like, making it really stand out or anything like that. It was just, like, another event that came and went, and I think this one was also one of the shorter ones that was paired with, like, another event where, like, you had, like, 1 week was the first event, or, like, the first, like, you had a week and a half of the first event, and then interlapping that was, like, a second event that went on for a week and a half or something stupid like that. I don't know. It was kind of silly, but this one was okay. Next up, we have all 3 Legend Anthologies. We're going to start off with the first Legend Anthology, which I believe was absolute garbage. Holy crap, this is a terrible idea. It alienates, like, half of the player base, similarly to the Duelist Cups, but in the opposite direction. If you're not a casual, this event is awful. It's so unbelievably boring. If you do not want to play Dark Magician or Blue Eyes, this event was really, really boring. There wasn't really much to do. It was very, like, samey. It was basically always just, like, Dark Magician, Dark Magician, Dark Magician, Dark Magician, Dark Magician. It was super, super boring. None of the decks felt, like, all that entertaining. And sure, like, they banned Maxi and stuff like that, but it was just, like, it was so slow. And not, like, in a good way. It felt just like every deck was inconsistent. Not necessarily like it wasn't going to do the same end board or like have the same end board that it would normally. It was more so just like, cool, you're just going to brick like 9 times out of 10, which wasn't very fun. I still think they were better than the Duelist Cup, but that's not really saying much. And next up we have Academy. I'm going to put Academy slightly higher. This one was slightly better than the original Legend Anthology because there was slightly more that you could do. But now they added Hero, which didn't really make it much better. I'm actually still going to put this in F tier. I think it's so hard to get this idea done well. And I'm so glad that these are shorter events because they just don't work. Right? The idea is like, oh, quick, okay, we're going to make an event where all of the top tier stuff is banned, centering around a specific generation of the anime, and you're going to play anime style decks, and then it never ends up working out that way. This, I think, was the first time where they didn't just like ban everything, and you could play like no, yeah, that wasn't Intel Acceleration. We'll get to that one in a second, but yeah, this one was this one was not good. If you liked it, I think that's okay. It just wasn't designed for everyone, and it was definitely not designed for me. I did not enjoy any of these Legend Anthologies. Speaking of, Legend Anthology Acceleration was the worst one by far, and it's not close. In fact, I'm actually going to move Academy up, even though I've been moving it back and forth. I'm going to move Academy up because of how bad Acceleration was. This one was atrocious. They added the ability to play basically a whole bunch of like link decks from like Vrains and stuff like that, and they basically, instead of centering around 5Ds, they just said, yeah, just play any anime deck. So like Marincess and Salamangreat and a myriad of other decks from the animes, like Galaxy Eyes and stuff like that, were all playable. And let me tell you, if you've played against anime decks, you probably know most of them are not fun to play against. A lot of them are really non-gaming games, right? Like playing against Dark Magician. Look, I like Dark Magician. I really do. I enjoy the deck. I enjoy playing it. I think it's a cool mechanic. Tier Lanta, it is awful to play against. If you've played in Duel Links, where they were like tier 1, if you played during that time, you should know how unfun it was to play against that deck. Playing it, sure, absolutely. If you enjoy it, I'm not hating on you. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just like, a lot of the anime decks, including and not limited to Dark Magician, are just not fun to play against. And this just added more of them, and added them as more inconsistent. So it was really, really frustrating and not very fun. However, you could also play War Rock, so there's that. Limit 1 Festival. I think at the time, I really didn't enjoy this one nearly as much. But I think looking back, it is a pretty good... It is a pretty good one. However, I still can't put it that high. I think it's okay. I think the major issue that I had with it was... oftentimes, it felt like, because of a lot of decks basically just having one-card combos anyway, it felt like if your opponent saw that one-card combo, they probably just won the game, unless you also happened to see that one-card combo, as well as, like, your random removal spells that you were playing. So it felt very sacky, which is, I mean, it's a Limit 1 Festival, it's kind of supposed to feel that way, but not, like, in a fun or interesting way. It felt just kind of like, okay, you saw, Chi-Shao into Baron, full combo line, and I saw nothing. So, good game. I saw, like, Droplet and no combo starters. It wasn't very fun. It felt very, like... Yeah. A lot of the games just felt... Not samey. In fact, the opposite. But, like, it wasn't in your hands. It was not up to you whether or not you win. Which is frustrating. Next up, we have Regulation Link, which was a terrible idea to begin with, and was just one of the worst events. This was literally just ranked, like, 2. That was it. You just couldn't use anything other than Link monsters. But unlike the things like Fusion and Fusion XZ and stuff like that, this was literally just another ranked ladder. And it was unbelievably boring. Yeah, that was it. Don't do another ranked ladder. Don't do something that's just ranked 2. Ranked is there. It still exists. I'd like something on top of that, right? Why do you think in League of Legends they have Summoner's Rift, but then they also have, you can play it normally, you can play it blind pick, you can play it in ranked, or you can play ARAM. You can just play this entirely other game that's entirely for fun and has no ranking system. Cool, great. Why is it that we keep making a ranked? I don't want to play ranked again. Give me something else, please. Then we have the two monster type ones. I think both of these are good ideas, right? The Angel and the Demon one, the what was it, Fiend and the other one, I can't remember. Fiend and Fairy, that's what it was. Cool concept, right? Angel and Devil, very cool concept. Dear Lanta, it was poorly executed. I believe this was basically just Labyrinth, all over the place. And I like Labyrinth, and I like the mirror match in Labyrinth. But I do enjoy, at some time, playing literally anything else. So there's that. Then we have the Beast, the Beast Warrior, Winged Beast, Insect, and Reptile one. Which, first and foremost, that is too many. This should have just been Beast Warrior, Winged Beast. Please. I get that it would mostly be dominated by Tri-Brigade, but guess what? They nerfed Tri-Brigade into the ground. This one was so annoying because the thing that you would want to play, or you would expect to play in an event like this, was just nerfed into the ground. I think they like banned Nerval or something stupid like that. And it was just like, why? Why would we do this? This one was really bad as well because they didn't ban Maxi. So it was even more frustrating. Yeah, not good. I'm actually going to put it below X0. This one was not fun. NR is the GOAT. NR is... The NR format still exists, right? People still play with just commons and rares in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And they have tournaments and events, and it's super fun, and a lot of them are well done. And with that being said, this came out right at the beginning of the game, where not everyone had full power decks, or had the time to grind for all of the URs to play, I don't know, Invoked? I don't know what deck was, like, expensive. Drytron? Drytron wasn't expensive. They weren't expensive. Tri-Brigade, I guess. But the big thing about this was that it was nerfed in a way that was still incredibly fun. You could still play a lot of different decks, and you could experiment to no end. But also the games felt back and forth. They felt dynamic. They were taking multiple turns. There was a resource loop. There were big boss monsters. There were payoffs. There was everything, right? It was just like, imagine Edison format. That's basically what this is, but for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. It's great. It's fantastic. And I loved that snapshot in history. It was so much fun. I remember playing so many different decks and experimenting with them because it was awesome. Ritual event was not very good. It was kind of mid. I can't remember exactly what the ritual event was, but it was. Oh, this was when the Hungry Burger one came out. So there was a bunch of like really weird inclusions for extra deck, and it was just like everything was limited. There was like nothing that was really playable. It was kind of jank and not all that fun. It was very difficult to like try and figure out what to play. And like, let's be honest, there aren't many ritual decks that are good that people have actually put together. So yeah, this one was kind of a nightmare. Have we had 2 Synchro events? I do not remember us having 2 Synchro events. I remember the first one. I remember it very well. It was awful. Oh my goodness. Probably here. Yep. Yep. There are my thoughts on it. It was very bad. That's it. It was very bad. This one was just combo. Turbo. Like, there are so many Synchro decks that just spit out an infinite amount of negates. Especially at that time, where it was like, that was all that Synchro was doing. I believe we didn't have Sword Soul at the time. Maybe we did. I can't remember. but yeah, it was a nightmare and not very fun. I do not remember if we had a second one. I don't remember. I don't recall a second Synchro event. I do recall the Synchro Link event, which I think was pretty good. I'm just gonna put all of these right here. These all basically felt the exact same. Nothing really changed. It was like, yeah, you could play XZ, you could play Synchro, you could play Synchro, you could play Link. It was, whatever. It kind of just felt like ranked for a little, but not quite the exact same, right? Like, maybe it was Pearly, maybe it was Sword Soul, maybe it was Tri Brigade, maybe it was Branded, maybe it was Lyralisk. It kind of all just felt the same. Next up, we have Theme Chronicle. I love Theme Chronicle. Theme Chronicle, especially the first one. We've technically had two. We've had two Theme Chronicle. I know that. The first one was fantastic because I believe this was before a lot of the solo modes that kind of suck. But this was basically the solo mode event, which I found to be really interesting. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's just Crusadia OTK and stuff like that." Well, it's like, yeah. If you just played for the gems, which at this point in time, people were basically just playing events, not to actually play something different or do something different with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. They were doing it basically just for rewards. So a lot of people were just like, cool, what's the fastest deck I can win with? Cool, what's the fastest deck I can win with? Let's just not play Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's just play the fastest deck I can win with so that I can get in and get out. And it was a little frustrating. The issue that the thing that I liked about Theme Chronicle was even with Crusadia OTK existing and being a good deck, you could still have good matches against that. You could still enjoy your time against that deck, right? And there were far better decks, right? Orcus was there, which was far better. I believe I think a few other decks were like Mech Knight was more playable. I'm struggling to think of exactly what it was because it's been a while. But that Theme Chronicle I think was very, very fun. And the second one was a little bit worse, but even then, I still think it's one of the best events that we've had. I think the idea is very cool. I think a lot of people look at it as, oh, it's supposed to be a solo mode event. So where are all the solo mode? And forget that, no, it's just kind of like a secondary meta. Yeah, maybe it's not all exactly solo mode decks, but so, a lot of these have been, not just one exact deck, right? And Theme Chronicle, I felt like was just kind of like a lower power, modern format kind of thing, which I found to be very fun. Next up, we have Light and Dark Versus. This one was actually very good. I think, again, very similar to Dual Triangle, but instead just for lights and darks, which I found to be very enjoyable. Most people were just playing dark, so you would queue against you would be playing dark and then queue against another person also on your same team, which was very funny. But there weren't that many light decks. It was Exo Sister. I think there was another one. It was basically just Exo Sister, which was kind of annoying. But for the most part, I do think that this was a good idea. I think it was fun. I think it wasn't perfect, but I think it was really cool. I think the ban lists for both sides were pretty good. It was just, it was really enjoyable and very fun and totally worth it. XZ event, this one was fine. I'm going to move this one down. This one was fine. This one was also very early on before people, this one was the very first one. Okay? This was the very, very first event. And with that in mind, it was so poorly balanced. You could play self-TK, you could play OTKs out the wazoo. It was Zodiac, Zeus, Turbo. You could play the Lyralisk stuff. You could play a whole bunch of other random shenanigans. And it took so many wins. Oh, no, sorry. It took so many wins to actually complete the event. And the losses were counted almost just as much as the wins, which is why so many people were playing self-DK. But the thing is, I still remember this fondly, and I still think about how good it was and how fun it was. Because here's the thing: if you saw Self Decay, sure, whatever, happens. They're playing, they're just trying to win. That's fine. I didn't really care too much because it's like, yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. Whatever, who cares? But when it comes to the actual games that were played against like other Xyz decks and stuff like that, I found most of them to be at least reasonably enjoyable, right? So while the event was pretty bad overall, and it's not really like that unique of an idea, I think a lot of the matches ended up being at least fairly interesting. Not like the most interesting or like really exciting, but they were enjoyable. They were fun. They were back and forth. Even with Zeus, it was like at least reasonable, right? And there was like something that you could do kind of with every deck and against every deck, which was fun and nice. So there's that. Granted, would this event hold up now? No, it'd be a nightmare. But as the first event, I do think it was pretty fun. Now we're just waiting on the Pendulum event, right? I'm joking. That's just not gonna happen. But yeah, there you go. There is my tier list for all of the events. Now I believe. Oh, Duel Trial is not in here. Hold on, let me add that real quick. Duel. Yeah, there it is. Duel Trial. Real quick. Gotta do Duel Trials. I think Duel Trials have been, for the most part, really good. I think the idea of them is really good. They're just kind of like fun little events off to the side. I think conceptually, I originally started was like, these are going to be terrible. These aren't like full events. But seeing how they've actually been implemented, they're pretty good. Some of them, like the skill drain one, are absolute stinkers. They are just not fun. Some of them, like the double summon one, are fine. They're just like, yeah, this is just whatever. Like nothing changes. And some of them are really, really enjoyable because of like the weird gimmick that they implement. I can't think of I can't remember the specifics behind the ones that I've enjoyed, but I do remember like some of the ones that I enjoyed and why I enjoyed them. But for the most part, they're just kind of there to supplement some of the other events and kind of tide you over, which I think is good. However, just make the events run longer. Like, there's no reason to have them just be 2 weeks. Like, have them run until the next one starts. Just constantly have them going, right? For the Duelist Cup, it makes sense to have it like have a break and stuff like that. But for everything else, yeah, why not? Why not just run, X event into the next event into the next event, right? I see no reason to not do that, but okay. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. Hopefully you guys did. Actually, let me know if you guys agreed with this. You probably didn't. I'm sure so many people are pissed that Legend Anthology is down here. But yeah, it's bad. Anyway, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys did indeed enjoy it. And if you did, I like it very much. So appreciate it. If you want to check out more content like this, then remember to always, subscribe. But remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.